Welcome to the Beau Show, the home of faith, family, and freedom. And all three of those are very important to Hispanics, which is what I want to discuss today. We know that Latinos are the biggest minority in the United States, representing 18.5% of the country, at least that we know of and count. This does not factor in illegal aliens. When you look at the state breakdown by race, Texas is 40% Latino, 40% in California, 50% in New Mexico, 32% in Arizona, 29% in Nevada, and 27% in Florida. Bear in mind that this particularly matters in Arizona, Florida, and Nevada, where elections are not always predictable. I want to talk about the Hispanic vote and how that will shape future elections. Dynamics are shifting, and the economic impact on Latinos is taking a toll, which may affect this vote. Democrats have long pandered to Latinos and other minorities, trying to position themselves as the party for all, the inclusive tent, as opposed to the old, rich, white, elitist Republican country club. Tulsi Gabbard talked about her decision to affiliate with the Democrats when she was a 21-year-old congressman in Hawaii for this very reason. But a lot has changed in 20 years. And furthermore, there was an inconvenient truth in the Hispanic immigrant community, as Cubans in particular escaped Castro's communist regime to flee to Florida, establishing Little Havana and their own communities. They came here to find a better life, like all immigrants do, to pursue their American dream. But they had to do it the normal, legal way. So the Latinos that came from Cuba and socialist South America didn't necessarily commit blindly to the Democratic Party. Mexicans and Central Americans, however, came across the southern border under an Obama presidency, which came to a screeching halt in the Trump administration, especially as violent gangs like MS-13 and the cartels trafficked more and more drugs and people into America, creating a massive addiction problem. Trump was called a racist by his political opponents for enforcing existing laws and funneling immigrants through the required ports of entry. The wall that he wanted to build was considered the pinnacle of his xenophobia. But Trump bartered with the Mexican leadership and threatened tariffs, something no other president had done. These policies were reversed under a Biden presidency that has now permitted 2 million border crossings, the highest number ever recorded. But here are some facts about the Hispanic community. They have $1.9 trillion in buying power, and they start businesses faster than any other ethnic group. They generally have one more person in their family compared to Caucasians. The nuclear family unit is still a staple of Latino communities. Many are religious, practicing the Roman Catholic faith. But as first-generation Latinos turn into second and third, there's been an infectious trend to Americanize younger Latinos into Democratic pawns, which has been a product of a mass media campaign. Of course, that's not just Latinos that fall into this pattern, but most of Gen Z. This is done through things like Rock the Vote, the entertainment industry, and academia. But newer grassroots organizations like Turning Point USA have tried to counter that influence, especially on college campuses. It became clear that the Democrats saw Latinos as their new voting demographic, so they pandered on the issue of immigration, offering a compassionate pro-amnesty, pro-DACA position. Republicans in the Bush years did not do a good job of outreach to Latinos at all. They let the Dems take a W for the long time. But then Donald Trump came along and upended everything. Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, and Ted Cruz can all speak Spanish, but I guess Latinos didn't really buy it. Trump had something they didn't have, which was this celebrity American dream status. They wanted to be him. So Hispanics and blacks voted for Trump in record numbers, whereas George W. Bush had pathetic numbers. How did this happen? What was so different? Well, in short, like I said, Trump had a certain swagger, but he also did something no other president did. He lowered the unemployment rate for those minorities to historic lows. Under a Trump presidency, he produced results, which was that the economy zoomed, and as a result, Hispanics thrived. Trump rolled back the burden that regulations placed on small businesses. And as I mentioned earlier, Hispanics start businesses at a faster rate than any other race. So they benefited from his deregulation. Many Hispanics are business owners, and many of those are small businesses. So you understand why a Trump economy versus a Biden economy greatly affects them. Recently, I attended a conference for Hispanic leaders presented by AFPI, or the America First Policy Institute. The purpose of this event was to gather Hispanic leaders across the country and engage with them in a meaningful way as part of a strategy for not just 2022 or 24, but well beyond. It was part teaching, but it was also learning from these leaders insofar as what is happening in Hispanic communities in Southern California or Texas or Florida, Arizona. Each state is different in terms of its needs and Hispanic composition. But inflation, of course, is hitting them all hard. But at the same time, Latinos in Florida and Texas fare better than California due to how differently those states are run, especially in terms of taxes and regulations. The new inflation numbers are out, and prices increased 0.4% in September and up 8.2% from a year ago. And they're only comparing it with this time last year, which was already increasing inflation. So this is inflation upon inflation. That's hitting everyone. Oh, and as an aside, Cheddar News thought this inflationary news was only the third biggest story of the day. They felt that Trump being subpoenaed by the January 6th committee was the number one story of the day that you should be paying attention to. I want to examine some trends in the Hispanic vote historically and why this matters. Age is one important factor. Many Latinos in America are young, under age 40. And as is true with Americans, the lower your age, the less you have a tendency to vote, which is why you see the Democrats trying their best to get these young voters to engage and vote for their party. Socioeconomic status is also a determining factor. The higher the status or education level, the greater the chance for voting. Now, some researchers attribute this to a lack of time or a lack of knowledge on the civic participation process, and some have said that there is systemic racism, which I think we can now throw out the window as just a poor excuse. But socioeconomic status is important, and I'll tell you why. As I mentioned earlier with the inflation numbers, this is going to affect lower and middle income folks far more than the wealthy. So if you look at just the numbers, a Trump economy gives them a better opportunity, and a Biden economy gives them a much less desirable opportunity. Where Biden and the Dems have tried to cater is through social welfare programs. It's the handout rather than the hand up. What socioeconomically disadvantaged Latinos need to know, and I think they're beginning to see this, is that Democrats give them a much worse chance of succeeding, especially when you factor in the rate at which they start businesses. So in states like Texas, California, and Arizona, where Hispanics make up a third of the population or more, this can have a significant impact. A Latino candidate also may spark voting interest. Let's take Myra Flores, who just won her special election in a deep blue district in South Texas. She did the impossible. Let's take a look at some of her views.
You know, you come from a family of Democratic voters. I believe you yourself voted for President Obama back in 2008. And when you take a look at recent polling on President Biden's approval rating with Latino voters, this latest Quinnipiac poll shows that he is in dire straits here. Just 24% support among Hispanics. Is the Democratic Party leaving you, or are you leaving the Democratic Party?
The Democrat Party has abandoned the Hispanic community. They're focused on white liberals. They're not focused on the Hispanic community. They can care less, and they just are not representing our values. Again, we're all about faith and family and hard work, and that's not the Democrat Party. But what's happening in South Texas is a Myra Flores wave. I'm fighting for the conservative values that we were instilled, and I think that it's important that we continue fighting for those values. And look, I'm not loyal to a party. I'll say it over and over. My loyalty is with God and with my family and with my community, and I believe that it's time to put Texas District 34 first. We've never had a voice here in Washington. No one really cared what we had to say, and now people do care about the Hispanic community. Now people actually care about the voice of Texas District 34, and I'm just so proud and humbled to be representing all Texas District 34 and all Hispanic community throughout the country.
She focuses on the issues that are important to Latinos: faith, family, community, traditional values. And she says that Democrats have instead focused on white liberals. Now, isn't that interesting? I told you in my last show how Tulsi Gabbard left the Democratic Party because they had become a party of elites. It seems that Latinos are seeing that too now. And Flores' husband is a Border Patrol agent, so he understands the border issue better than anyone. Can Nancy Pelosi say the same? No, because Nancy's husband Paul was just arrested for DUI not that long ago. And what about Jill Biden? How does she view the Latino community?
But we can't get those things on our own. Raul helped build this organization with the understanding that the diversity of this community, as distinct as the Bogotas of the Bronx, as beautiful as the blossoms of Miami, and as unique as the breakfast tacos here in San Antonio.
Breakfast tacos? Breakfast tacos? Is that what makes the Hispanic community diverse? You could tell that the reaction to that was one of great consternation. I can guarantee you that a white liberal from the Bronx probably wrote that speech. But let's compare that to an ad by Donald Trump.
Ay, 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 por Dios, yo voy a votar por Donald Trump. La buena vida, por Trump. La economía, por Trump. Hazlo por tu familia, latinos por Donald Trump. Ay, 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 por Dios, yo voy a votar por Donald Trump.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
I heard the guy speak who created this ad, and he thought long and hard about what musically and aesthetically would be appealing. It was created by Giancarlo Sopo. He utilized the Cuban-American band Los Tres de la Habana. To me, this really captures the richness and ideals of the Hispanic American family pursuing their American dream. La buena vida, the good life. La economía, the economy. Hazlo por tu familia, do it for your family. You can't help but move to the salsa music. And it shows you such great things about Hispanic culture. Not the breakfast tacos that Jill Biden talked about.